Hi, thanks for watching today's video. I'm Brian, the Finance Ninja. Tell you what, there is a very prominent YouTube out there who I have a lot of respect for. I will not say you their name, but they make great content. They just may be my favorite YouTuber. So please, go and subscribe to their channel. Not my channel, their channel. You heard me right. So they recently made a video called Intel versus AMD. They crunched numbers and came to the conclusion that Intel just may be a better buy than AMD. Now, again, I respect this YouTuber, I respect them, but on this very one video, I disagree. I'm going to tell you why and where I disagree, so please, give this video a like. This video is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. So please, do your own research. Let's go. Guess what? We have reached 500 subs. Thank you guys so much. This is a fantastic milestone. I would not be here without you. This means so much to me. It's a very special. Just thank you. I appreciate every last one of you. Guess what? Our next milestone is 1,000. I'm going to have a very special video prepared for that one as well. Alright, now back on to the war. The war between Intel and AMD. So let's start with the people. This is where this other prominent YouTuber sort of forgot, was to talk about their leaders. So let's start with Lisa Su. Lisa Su has a PhD in electrical engineering at MIT. She went on to she went on to join AMD as CEO. Well, she joined a couple years earlier, but she became CEO of AMD in 2014 and rescued them from death. They were a dead company. She rose them to prominence. And then on Intel's side, we have Pat Gelsinger. He has a master's degree of electrical engineering at Stanford. So both these leaders had very high pedigrees for science, which is very good. This is what you need in the tech industry, is a science background. So they're both very good leaders in that regard. And again, I'm gonna do this video in a impartial manner. So I'm gonna treat both sides fairly, or as fair as I can. Let's continue. Now, again, Pat Gelsinger, I have respect for him. My one issue with him, however, is that he actually has 30 years of prior experience at Intel. In my opinion, when you're trying to bring a company back from stagnation, you need fresh blood. Fresh blood, I think, tends to work best, as opposed to somebody who's been at your company already for 30 years. So he worked at Intel for 30 years, then he worked at VMware for a while, and then he went back to Intel as CEO. Now, the biggest thing this YouTuber missed was he never discussed the product. Now, in technology, what do you have if you don't have the product? You have nothing. So what it is, it's about the product, and it's about where the product will take the company in the future. So in this case, I'm going to compare the Ryzen and Core first, then we're going to move on to servers. Now let's look at a couple. I'm just going to show you a couple benchmarks. I don't want to bore you, so I'm just going to show you a few. So here's gaming. Both are actually comparable in gaming. Honestly, you can't go wrong with either processor if your goal is gaming. You're just talking about a couple frames per second here or there, depending. Now this is where AMD comes out to a huge lead. I mean, just look at this. A point score system. The Ryzen 9 5950X, 244.5. The comparable Intel processor, 170. I mean, that is just a massive gain. I mean, and there's a reason for that. I'll actually go over the reason for the multi-threaded performance for AMD in a second. So again, multi-core, now this is more for workstation loads. So if you work on, say, Photoshop or something else, you want to work on the workstation, this helps you with that. Again, AMD has a huge lead in the workstation. Again, multi-core performance. And this is all from Tom's Hardware. Now, where Intel actually cranks out a minor lead, I mean, let's face it, it's a lead. Intel has the lead here. So I'll give them credit where credit is due. they do lead in single-threaded performance, as you can see here. However, there's a cost to that lead. In order for Intel to achieve that lead, they basically literally poured as much power as possible into the processor. I mean, it works. It got them that lead in that one category, not the other categories, but this one category. But you'll notice here that the Ryzen 9 5950X runs at 121 watts, whereas the Intel comparison processor runs at 206 watts. I mean, that's 50% more than the Ryzen 9 5950X. That is a huge watt increase for basically similar or worse performance. I mean, that's sad. I mean, just look at this chart. This is actually a comparison of watt versus performance. So this is an efficiency chart. So the further to the bottom and to the left you are, the better. See, the x-axis is seconds. So the lower, the better. The y-axis is energy. Again, the lower, the better. And AMD just wipes the floor with Intel in this category. Just efficiency, you got to go with AMD. You don't have a choice. Now, the next step is the roadmaps. For AMD, they're actually going to release a 5nm chip next year called Genoa. Now, the thing about this is Intel has been stuck on 14 nanometers forever. I mean, Intel actually had it their processor earlier this year that they released, the Core i9 11900K. That's a long name. But yeah, they released that earlier this year. They actually engineered that processor for a 10 nanometer node. Now, what happened was Intel's factories said, nope, no mas, can't do it. So Intel had to backport this processor to a 14 nanometer node. And that's just, it was a disastrous result for this processor. And as a result, Intel had to chop off 2 cores from the processor. So AMD has a 2-core lead for the similar processor, similar price, which helps give AMD the performance lead in most of those categories. So again, AMD is leading in multi-threaded performance. So in case you're kind of unsure what I'm talking about when I talk about nanometers, think about it this way. Let me translate, if you will. Imagine you purchase an empty lot of land. You want to build a house on it, a beautiful house, a nice house. One contractor says they can fit a 3-bedroom house on it. Nice. Another contractor says they can only fit a 2-bedroom house on it. I mean, same plot of land, same size, but one contractor can fit more into that space than the other contractor. It's about efficiency. That's why the lower the nanometers, the better. That means that you can fit more transistors into the same die size. And actually, it's gotten so bad that Intel actually decided to be deceptive. This was released just a couple days ago, and oh my god, you have to hear this. Actually, look this up. You won't believe it. Intel renamed their 10 nanometer enhanced SuperFin to Intel 7. Yes, the Intel 7 is not a 7 nanometer part. It is a 10 nanometer part. You heard that right. You can't make this stuff up. Just, I mean, wow. That, honestly, I think that is deceptive. That is truly deceptive. And this continues. The Intel 4 is a 7 nanometer part. This is how they can compete, is by being deceptive to the customers. I mean, sure, they're not calling it Intel 4 nanometers, they're calling it Intel 4, but honestly, no. You don't do that. So let's move on to servers. AMD's EPYC Milan offers double Intel Xeon's data center performance. And this is what is giving AMD the edge in gaining market share against Intel in data centers. And it goes on to say, it's hard to overstate how badly AMD is shaming Intel in the data center lately. And that is true. I mean, okay, so this chart is from AMD. So granted, take this with the eyes that AMD is providing this information. But according to AMD, they have twice the performance in server processors over Intel. You can see here in the chart just how much of a gain they gained over the years from 2017 to 2021. I mean, AMD is just skyrocketing. Intel, little gain, but they're stagnant. Now again, this is AMD's slide, but the results are actually true. AMD is leading by far in servers, and this actually goes along with the actual the installations, the huge supercomputers that are being built. Most of them nowadays are choosing AMD, and there's a reason. Now, continuing with the slides, they're offering total cost of ownership value. So you're comparing here. You got an AMD EPYC that requires 3 server racks versus an Intel that requires 4 server racks. And so the AMD, they're saying, offers 49% fewer servers for the same performance, 25% less space, 35% less power, and 35% lower 4-year total cost of ownership. So honestly, given this information, I don't know why anybody would go with Intel over AMD when it comes to servers or most other uses. So let's move on to the numbers, the stock charts. AMD has been on a rocket ship lately since a couple days after their earnings report. They just got, look at that, it just skyrocketed. So AMD is at $118.77 now, market cap $144 billion. So remember, Lisa Su, when she took over this company, AMD had a market cap of $2 billion, maybe 3. Now it's $144 billion. Can you imagine that game? Imagine if you bought AMD back in 2014. You'd be rich. You'd be rich. So likewise, let's look at AMD's statistics. Again, the market cap, actually that's a little outdated. So AMD has a forward PE of 47.39, a price per sales of 10.21. That's decent, honestly. For how much they're growing, AMD is growing enormously. I mean, they're growing at about 100% clip each year revenues, like 90 to 100%. They're growing enormously. So let's move over to Intel. Intel, share price $53.90, market cap $218.6 billion. So Intel is still the larger company, but actually not that much. If you compare their actual revenues, you can see here Intel has a forward PE of 12.45, so about a quarter that of AMD, and a price per sales of 2.88. So just by looking at these numbers, Intel looks like the better buy, right? Actually, let's go to the financials. This is Intel's last 3 years. Look at their earnings. It has flatlined. This is due to Intel having to cut their prices to try to slow down AMD's market share grab. And it's true, their earnings are actually decreasing slightly, but it's virtually flatlined the last 3 years. And that's going to show in the results of my valuation in just a second. So let's start with AMD's simplified DCF valuation. I showed this in my previous video, so I'm just going to show it. I'll just go over it again briefly. I'm estimating a free cash flow in 2021 of $2.5 billion, increasing 90% in 2022, and increasing throughout to 2026, where 2026's growth is 35%. I'm using a discount rate of 10%, a perpetual growth rate of 2.5%. This nets you a fair value of equity of $204.58. That is what I think AMD is worth today. That's why I labeled the previous video AMD $200. It's actually a little bit over $200, but you get the idea. So I think AMD's upside now is 72%. A little bit lower upside than a couple days ago, but still a nice upside. Let's move on to Intel. So yes, the screen did change. Looks similar, but it did change. So this is Intel's DCF calculation. I'm estimating a free cash flow this year of $16.3 billion, which matches 2020. I actually think Intel is going to decline the free cash flow over the next couple of years. Part of it's due to capex, building out new factories. The other part of it is just they're not really competitive anymore. The process nodes, they're competing not against AMD for process node, they're competing against TSMC. And TSMC is going to reach like 2 nanometers in a couple of years. And Intel just can't keep up. They just can't keep up. They're going to try to spend their way to keep up, but they're going to lag behind, and it's going to cost them money. And that money, I don't think, will net them anything. Honestly, I think Intel should go the way AMD did and go fabless. I know that sounds like fabulous, but no, I said fabulous. That means no factory, no manufacturing. You just design the processor, and then you contract that out to a third party. AMD's case right now is TSMC. Intel, I think, should do the same. So Intel, I'm estimating a free cash flow growth of -3% for the next couple of years, and then flatlining throughout 2024 and 2024 to 2026. I'm using the same discount rate and perpetual growth rate as AMD, 10% discount, 2.5% perpetual. This nets a fair value of equity of 50.5 at 9 for an upside, or rather downside, of 6%. So as you can see, I actually think that AMD currently is still the better buy over Intel. So comment down below, which do you prefer? What would you buy today? Would you buy AMD? Would you buy Intel? What do you think? What is your target prices on each of these two companies? And don't forget to don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. Thank you to the channel members. Thank you to the patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Happy 500. And I will see you in the next one.